don't let it be too late for you, right? If you're grinding it out and it's not working, change, pivot, seek counsel. Seek counsel for somebody who successfully has built businesses around their life, not the other way around. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, here with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Tim, how's it going, brother?
Yeah, I'm all right.
The truth.
Yeah, I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm all right. I've been better.
Well, we've had some great conversations over the past hour. We always talk for about an hour before we hit the record button here. And as always, we dive into some really deep and interesting topics, and we always wish we hit record. But today, Tim, as much as I want to share with everybody what's going on with you, really what I want to share with everybody is a topic that keeps coming up for some of the men that we are serving, the guys that are going through the activation method right now. And that's the topic of being careful of who you seek counsel from. Right? So the idea that I want to throw on the table here, Tim, for our conversation today is oftentimes, as men, we don't seek advice until there's an issue, right? It's kind of a stereotype we have. We don't bring things up until it's a problem. And then we may ask our buddies, we may ask our friend, or we may get advice from a coach or somebody else that we know and look up to as authority figures. And so what I want to talk about are some of the pitfalls of doing that, some of the things to look out for, and some of the common mistakes. You game for that?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, one of the things that comes to me is oftentimes men, we talk about business. And I recently heard a story about a guy who was going through a business problem. And really what he was looking at doing is, should I grow my business? Should I sell it? Should I just go get a job? Right? It's a common thing that business owners talk about. Should I just go get a job and not have to worry about this? And he was talking about this in front of a group of men. And one of the guys turned to him and said very emphatically, just like he knew the answer. I'm talking about very, very sure of himself. And said, look, this is what you need to do. You need to get a cash flow injection into your company right away, about $500,000, and get that cash flow injection and really apply it to your marketing. Make sure your marketing is polished. You need to be traveling. You need to be seen as the man in the public eye. You should be investing all of your money here. And what you're also going to do is have 3 months of reserves in your business with this, new cash flow injection you're getting. This is going to be critical because if you don't do this, your business will fail. You will end up at the bottom. You will end up not only having a job, but you'll end up doing worse than having a job. You will feel horrible and you'll let everybody down. So that was his advice. And as I watched this, Tim, I looked at the business owner's face and, this guy was, again, so emphatic and so believable that he was just like, wow, okay, I got to get a cash injection of $500,000. You could see him processing, right? The first thing's thinking, how do I do this? How do I get this money? How do I come through? And I stopped. And after that, I saw this whole interaction. I reached out to the business owner because I actually know him. I said, look, how are you doing? And, went through all that. How are you feeling? And it's like, Doug, I'm really stressed. I got to get a cash flow injection of $500,000. And maybe he's wrong. Maybe I only need $300,000, to make this business work and to inject into my marketing and to really blow this up and scale. Like he said, in order to beat the competition, I'm going to have to invest all this money into it. The competition's been here before I have, Doug. I'm just got to figure out how I'm going to get that money. Am I going to get a bank loan? What am I going to do with that? And so, Tim, I'm hearing this. I turned to the business owner. I said, hey, let's call the guy that gave him the advice, Frank. I said, yeah, I heard Frank give you that advice. What's Frank's background? And so this business owner paused for a second and looked at me. He's like, well, Frank built a really successful company, he said, and then obviously the economy crashed and, back in 2008. And then Frank lost everything, and lost it all. And, he's building it up now, but obviously he knows what he's talking about. I looked at him. I said, you know what? In 2008, was there anybody else in Frank's business that didn't have hardship or maybe didn't have hardship, but that made it? He's like, well, yeah, Doug, of course. I looked at him and said, you know what? Perhaps Frank isn't the best person to be giving you advice, right? Perhaps Frank isn't the person you want to seek counsel from. Now, you can look at Frank, who's now working on a 9 to 5 type job. You can look at Frank as a warning sign, right? Getting advice from Frank is like getting real estate advice from a homeless person. You got to be careful on who you get advice from. Because the truth is, for this business owner, this injection of cash, yes, it would help his marketing. Yeah, it would make it look better potentially, right? But did it solve his problem? No, I don't think it would have solved this problem at all. He was putting money after bad decisions, right? That's dumb money. You don't just put money into a business until you know exactly what it's going to be used for and what's your ROI into it. He would have been giving up equity, getting up capital, going further in debt, which would have compounded his problems. And yet he was taking advice from a man who hadn't been successful in business, who had actually failed at the game of business. And that's where he was getting his counsel. And Tim, we see this other places, right? I mean, you've seen this in areas of relationships where men are seeking advice from, other single men or divorced men, about relationships and how to be successful in them. And it's not that, being divorced or separated or single doesn't mean you don't have anything to share. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying be careful on who you seek counsel from.
So true. It reminds me of someone that we both know. I'll describe the situation and, I'm sure you'll remember who it is, but this particular person's business wasn't doing very well. So what he then did was he went and sought counsel from certain people that were also struggling. And he framed the scenario and the questioning in the way where it was a little bit leading, but also he was going to get the answer that he wanted because he was really seeking validation. He was really seeking to be proved right, even when, him being right in this instance was going to, result in loss. Basically, financial loss, emotional loss, so on and so forth. And, you see what you look for at the end of the day, don't you? And, what you're saying there is, well, wow, I feel for your friend in a lot of respects, but I also, it's great that he's got someone like you by his side as well, because, you who knows, maybe you saved him $500,000 there and a hell of a lot of pain and heartache, and who knows what other impact that would have had on other areas of his life had he gone down that route. So, kudos to you for reaching out to him and offering him another insight, another way to look at this. But yeah, I know that in the past, very very early on in my journey, I won't say career journey, this was a problem that I somewhat struggled with because I was aware of seeking counsel from the right people, but, what do you do if you're not surrounded by people that have walked the path before you? And sure, you can go and get coaches, but, how do you know that those people really have walked the path before you? We see it so often, a certain image being portrayed. And, bringing this back to you, Doug, one of the things that you have always done really, really well, from a very early age is being very intentional and careful about who you surround yourself with. So, my question to you is, how do you then surround yourself with the right people so that the counsel that you do get is something that you can, trust and rely upon?
Such a great question. And I'm going to use a story to tell it. So, early on in my marriage, right? Newly married, beautiful wife. We love each other. We started to run into problems as most married couples do. The first year is kind of notorious. People don't talk about it being notorious, but it's a tough year. You're trying to figure things out together. And what we noticed we were doing when we'd fight, I would go out with my friends who happened to be all single. She would go out with her girlfriends who happened to be all single. And, of course, we bitch and moan about our partner a little bit here and there. And, we get advice from single people. Well, lucky for us, we quickly learned, being coaches, we figured this out pretty quickly, and we knew the answer, is we knew that we needed to seek out other couples to, be in relation with, right? To hang around. But when we asked ourselves the question, Tim, we're like, okay, who are other couples we want to model? Like, that have been down the path ahead of us, kind of like you're alluding to. And we had a hard time coming up with them. Really tough time. So what we did, and this, I would recommend this through business or anything else, is we started seeking it out. We started seeking them out, I should say. We started inviting them to dinner, right? These are older couples, already successful, kids, family life seems great on the outside at least. And, you get to know them and you realize that every family has its, struggles, of course. No one's perfect. But we actively sought these people out. We went looking for them. We showed up to events. We, talked to people we did business with. We would talk about their lives, and we actively sought these people out. Now, I've done the same as you said with business, seeking out business owners who do mentoring or coaching. Oftentimes they're hard to get to because they're very good at business. The ones that, in my experience, who are actually really, crappy at business are easy to find because they're all over social media talking about business. It's kind of like, when you have that friend who is out of shape and overweight and they go on a new diet, right? Could be ketogenic, 1 week could be vegetarianism, vegan, and all they talk about is the way you should eat, right? Oh, Tim, keto, you got to reduce your carbs. It's the best thing. And they're chomping on bacon and you're looking at them. They're telling you all about it. Or veganism, you can't eat animals and this is why. And that's all they do is talk about it, is because they haven't mastered it. Right. And that's where a lot of business coaches or coaches, personal development, men's coaches, you and I being in the men's coaching space, we see this all the time where people are saying, you can have it all. And behind the scenes, because we know some of these people, they are out of control, their life's in shambles, and they're just trying to sell something that they're actually searching for, So again, to answer your question, you need to seek them out, right? You need to find them. Now, social media is a great tool to search people out and find them, see people who are doing mentoring or who are posting quality content that resonates with you. If it's the area of business, you can find them on LinkedIn, of course, or other places. And then reach out and have a conversation with them, right? They should be willing to have a conversation with you and then ask around. There's nothing wrong with asking around. So with this guy in the story I was telling you about, this business owner, when seeking counsel, what I advised him to do, because I was a friend of his, I didn't want to give him advice per se. I wanted him to avoid this other path he was going down. But I recommended he talk to a few people, talk to a number of people, see who resonates with you the best. Don't be cautious, be cautious, but don't fall into the trap of, well, I talked to 3 people and this guy's the cheapest, so I'm going with him. And that's usually the reason that person's the cheapest, right? And when you're talking about your experience early on in your journey, seeking out these coaches and who's really reputable and who's not, I think getting recommendations from other people is top notch. I also think about asking. There's nothing wrong with asking them about their business, their lifestyle, and asking them real and honest questions. When I get business advice, I don't want to get business advice from somebody who is wealthy yet has no relationships, has no health, isn't living their dreams, right? Because that's not what I want to do. I want to build a business around those other areas. So I seek out people who can give me business advice, but are also living in the other spheres. Hey guys, I had to interrupt this show because I want to talk to you about a case study we put together. It's only 11 minutes. And what we do is we go over and show you how almost 300 men have taken control of their life, have already 4x'd their business revenue, and are having more connected and intimate sex with their partner using the activation method. Now they're doing all of this without burning down their relationships and without suffering and sacrificing their health. We want you to have this too. So go over to thepowerfulman.com/11, the number 11, 11, and get this right now. It's only 11 minutes and it's going to show you exactly how these men have done it. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Now, again, I'm thinking back to the early days for me, and I'm thinking about some of the guys that we work with as well. And, in reality, as I reflect, there really are no excuses, are there? The excuse I used to use was, the area that I'm in, it's not a great area and there's no one around here. And
such a common excuse, right?
Yeah,
Location.
Yeah, it's bullshit. We live in one of the most, affluent areas of Leeds, but we do not because for money or anything, but I love to be surrounded by the abundance. And the point I'm making here is, we can walk to the top of the street and there's restaurants there that Rolls Royces are parked outside and Lamborghinis and all the rest of it. So that completely flies in the face of the story I used to tell myself. Because the reality is it's all around us. I wasn't looking for it. And I used to make the excuse that I'm just too busy. I'm just too busy to make time to go and harbor these relationships. But the reality was, I was being busy and not productive. And also, again, thinking back to where I used to be and some of the guys we work with, I was in a scarcity mindset as well, which then meant that, I wasn't looking after myself in a way that I ought to have been. I was hustling hard. I was working, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And I really wore it as a badge of honor. I can remember getting into bed on a night just with a huge grin on my face because I just hustled my ass off. Point being is because I was in that kind of mindset, I then, anything that didn't give me immediate gratification, i.e. going and, investing into relationships with these people, so I had the right counsel around me, anything that didn't give me the immediate gratification, I just didn't see the benefit in it. But yeah, like you said, there are no excuses. And I look at someone like, you, Doug, the relationships that, you've fostered with different people, and it's inspiring. It really is. I love it, and it's one of the reasons why I choose to be around you, because, you're a great guy and you're my, that's kind of my counsel, if you will, along with other people as well. Because I've come to realize, like you say, the real importance of this and really paying attention to who you pay attention to. It's funny. My mum, bless her, I love her to pieces, but she'll often say, "Oh, how much is that? Oh, that's too much money. Oh, oh, oh." She lives in a lot of fear and scarcity with money, which is cool. It's just her. But that has a real big influence on my sister. Whereas for me, obviously, I don't listen to that. And she knows, because over the past few years, I just kind of shut that down. If I'm ever in a conversation, say I'm around my parents and they being negative and fearful or whatever, honestly, I just get up and walk off. And that's nothing against them. I'm just very, very protective about my own energy and my space and who I pay attention to, which by default is those guys, then just don't have those conversations around me anymore, because there's no real, I wouldn't say that. They're very few and far between, because I know I just don't, I just don't get involved. But it's very, very important about, what kind of conversations you're in, hence this podcast being such a great conversation to be in, and who you seek counsel from. I think, you've brought a great, great topic to the table here.
Yeah, it's something that I have been very conscious of and still am very conscious of who I'm seeking counsel from. And, and I hear it in, we've all heard the whole thing. You guys have heard it from me before, but I think it's Jim Rohn that might have coined this. I'm sure he got it from somebody else, but you are the basically sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, if you're listening to this, Tim and I can be 2 of those today for you, we hope. But you are that sum total. And that's the reason we came up with the Brotherhood, right? So for those that don't know, the Brotherhood is after the men go through the activation method, which is an 8-week boot camp type training style, where they're working with a coach, and then they go through an actual retreat, very intensive, very amazing. And a certain percentage of them are offered an invitation into the Brotherhood. which is kind of our ongoing fraternity, so to speak, of men playing at a higher level and doing more in their lives that are out there to make a change, not only in themselves, but also their families and their communities. And so that's where we're talking about surrounding yourself with counsel. The brotherhood consists of all these men that you can turn to and get advice and know that you're going to get honest feedback from somebody. And they might even say, hey, look, I'm not the best person to talk about this, but go talk to Arthur, my friend Arthur over here. And he can tell you, talk to you about real estate investments because he's been extremely successful the last 20 years in that department. Right. So that's what you want to be looking for. You want to be able to surround yourself with a network and build a network of people who can serve as your personal board of advisors, so to speak. Right. Who are these people that you're going to come to? Now you get to make your own choices. Right. You don't have to listen to all of their advice. I'd recommend if you have somebody that has good counsel, definitely heed their counsel. Right. So if there's somebody, for example, I have a couple friends who have been extremely successful in the area of financial investments. And, if I ask them a question on a stock to pick, or should I invest in this company or that company, and they're experts in that situation and they advise me not to do it, well, I'd be stupid not to listen to them, not to heed their warning. Right? They are experts. I've already vetted them out, so I've already gone through that whole vetting process, and I'm going to heed. I'm also going to do my due diligence, of course. There's no excuses, but I'm going to heed their advice. And that's where it's so important. So, the reason I wanted to bring up this whole conversation on this podcast, on this show, was because there's so many men out there right now that are struggling, right? There's business owners out there that are going through depression. They're trying to grind it out. Only to realize you're seeing this with some big figureheads out there that all they talk about was grind. Like a couple years ago was just grind it out. And now they're coming back and saying, yeah, that was wrong. Now I'm spending more time with my family, right? They've changed their mind. Don't let it be too late for you, right? If you're grinding it out and it's not working, change, pivot, seek counsel for somebody who successfully has built businesses around their life, not the other way around. If you're struggling in relationships, your wife has left you or is going to leave you, which is a lot of you listening to this right now, right? Seek counsel from people who have saved their marriages, who have saved their relationships. How did they do it? How did they do it successfully, right? Those are the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. And the more you can surround yourself in this conversation, the more you can invest in what you said, Tim. It's all mindset. The more you invest in your mindset, the better you'll be along your journey.
Yeah, so true. And, drop the pride as well. It's okay seeking counsel, but if you're doing it, again, I'm just thinking of the guy that, we both know that we were speaking about earlier. He was seeking counsel, but from the perspective that he wanted to prove himself right. That's no good. Seek counsel in a way that, you lower the boundaries. Don't take it personal. Be real. Be upfront. Be honest. And, it's kind of like, what are you fighting for? That guy in particular was fighting for the need to be right. He needed to, that's where he got his significance from, feeling like he was making the best decision. But although that was resulting in poor performance in his personal and professional life, that's what he was fighting for. So as you seek this counsel, one thing I would invite you and encourage you to do is be mindful of, what are you fighting for here? Are you fighting for your pride, or are you really committed to your success? And if it's the latter, then when you seek counsel, what's always helped me is being completely transparent, honest, and open. Accepting my shortcomings and, sharing those and showing my wounds a little bit, showing my pains and my hurts because of the decisions I've made, and then asking for the support and being completely open to it, knowing that it's not a reflection on me. I'm not taking it personal, and I'm going to go away and implement. But like Doug said as well, do your own due diligence on it too, so that you're not just taking advice and running with it, knowing that if it don't work, it's your fault. That's a key here as well. You get to take your own personal responsibility, both from coming clean and also then applying
Love it. Love it. Gentlemen, that wraps up another episode of the Powerful Man Show. Tim, thanks so much again for being here, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, bro.
Guys, we will see you next week. Make sure you go over to the Facebook page, and we'd love to hear what you think about this episode and what you'd like to hear in future episodes. Until then, we'll see you next week.